all see, as they say. This has become one of those things alongside, you know, Amazon are at the door, you're on mute, and what a great cat or dog you have, you know, walking across the screen. These are the signs of our times, aren't they? So if you can all see, and I think I've got a thumbs up from Tracy. As Che said, that's me, Martin Randall. I'm Director for the Economy at Adur District Council, and of course Worthing Borough Council. And again, as Che said, yeah, it's tough, isn't it? Goodness me. I'm delighted to have the opportunity to speak to you today. I'm hugely mindful, and I think Che's comment about half term, you know, brought this home to us all. I'm hugely mindful that conditions are tough. I'm limiting my exposure to the news at the moment. I can take it in about 5-minute bites. At the beginning of this week in particular, it did seem to be particularly challenging. So, you know, onward and upward. But from the public sector, you know, it's really important that, you know, we acknowledge that trading conditions are very difficult at the moment. As councils, as you know, I'm sure Councillor Boggis, who's on the call, you know, will absolutely affirm, we want to do all we can to help. We want to step up, we want to make appropriate interventions to support the local economy, and obviously the Chamber is a central part of that. So what Tracy's asked me to do today is talk to you about what the council's been doing, an update on some of the commitments that we've made as part of our pandemic response. We've termed this and then, in the sincere hope that there is a then, and that we come out of this pandemic. I think I looked up, I think I'm 4,050,000th on the queue for a vaccine. So, you know, and I went into hospital just before Christmas to see if I could, you know, improve on that position, but apparently not. But there we are. Some people will try anything, won't they? Where can I start? I think this is probably a good place to start. Whoops. I was hoping that my scroll key would work at this point. There we are. The government has announced a further 4.6 billion in new lockdown grants. Now, unfortunately, the full 4.6 isn't available for Adur and Worthing businesses, but I think it's important to highlight that the councils have played, you know, a very key role in making sure that the various business grant programs introduced following the first lockdown have been delivered speedily and efficiently. So since last April, we've distributed around £34 million to around 4,000 local businesses. And that figure excludes the Lockdown 3 grants, which we started to process this week. And you'll be pleased to know that payments for Lockdown 3 grants started to go out on Wednesday. So we want to keep that prompt, we want to keep that efficient. My colleague Andy Willems, who many of you will know, who's our head of place and economy, virtually his entire team at various points have become the grants team. And frankly, as a council, that gives us a major opportunity actually, you know, thinking more commercially along those commercial lines. We've got an opportunity to foster those relationships with 4,000 businesses, many of whom, like you guys, you know, will know already, but quite a proportion that will be their first contact with the council. So perhaps adopting some of your best practice, you know, what we're encouraging the team to do at the council is make sure that that first experience with us is as good as it can be. And getting that money out the door, of course, is absolutely central to that. Kickstart, many of you will be aware of this scheme.
Morning, Gabriel, how are you?
Yeah, Kickstart scheme provides funding to employers to create for 16 to 24-year-olds on universal credit. We have registered, the councils have registered as an approved organisation or organisations, and working with a number of strategic partners, including Mind and Worthing Homes. We've identified 30 to 40 new roles, and we will actively participate as part of that scheme. We've recruited a Kickstart manager to oversee this programme, and they start literally next week. And we're looking forward to roles being advertised by DWP from February onwards, so all very current. And it's really important that we step up and show an example And I'm really pleased that we've got 30 to 40 new opportunities there. It's more than we were expecting. Interestingly, we've also designed and registered in a formal sense our own apprenticeship program around coaching and support, and listening to the introductions that may be of interest to some of you or indeed some of your clients, because we're looking at how we can make that more widely available to local employers. So we're trying to take initiatives, wherever we can. We continue, of course, to work very closely with our partners across the wider sub-region, the Coastal Capital Local Enterprise Partnership, the Greater Brighton Economic Board, the Coastal West Sussex Partnership, of course. And together with the Chamber, we continue to support the sterling work of the Adur Worthing Business Partnership. I know that many of you will read the chairman, Andrew Swain, of course, is on the call. Andrew's regular blogs, and I'm going to recommend this week's for some welcome and very forthright views from Andrew around testing sites. So do pick that up. But those partnerships are really sort of, the lifeblood coming together and actually sort of addressing some of the challenges of our time. So things that we are doing. Gigabit, you've heard a lot about Gigabit. And as we look forward, I think this is going to be a brilliant year. It starts in Worthing, but as you know, we've been supporting a Gigabit program for Adur Worthing for several years now. Paul Brewer, who is my colleague at the councils, has really been headlining this and really sort of pushing the boundaries to make sure that Worthing and Adur are first in the queue for Gigabit rollout. And I'm delighted to say that this year will be the year where we can really look forward to local businesses reaping some of the reward of the investment in Gigabit. If I roll back to 2016, that's when City Fibre were appointed to roll out full fibre in a limited number of places. So, essentially what we did is we put our properties as the council into the pot. And these were really the council-owned properties in Worthing. And we brought the West Sussex County Council into the frame and started to sort of paint a picture that, if you put all of these properties together, it starts to make sense for somebody like City Fibre to connect them all up. If you've got a connection, or if you've got that sort of matrix, if you like, of dark fibre links, then it starts to make sense to make that a commercial offer. And you'll have seen a number of the roads, and you can see on the map there what's already been done in central Worthing, starting to be connected with Gigabit. We got to last year, and the council's contracted City Fibre via a West Sussex framework to extend its footprint to a further 83 sites. And that was crucial. So 83 won't sound very much to you, but that was crucial because that triggered the commercial investment of £25 million from City Fibre to roll out something that starts to look like a place-wide network. So last year, and goodness me, as Chase said, what a year. You'll have noticed that City Fibre, really stepped up their rollout, and the pace, really took off. And they, at the end of the year, named their first internet service provider, the wonderfully named Zen, who are a national, who operate, in this field at a national level. And by the end of December, and I know some of you were tracking this very closely, particularly Andrew, they passed 18,500 Worthing properties. So you can see that progress during the year was quite rapid, and you can see those green blobs, starting to expand. The official launch, Zen's official launch of their product, so this is the bit that gets it to people's homes and businesses, was literally only 2 weeks ago. And actually, it's not a monopoly. More internet service providers are expected to announce this year. And the key thing I wanted to say is that City Fibre expects internet service providers to launch a specific product for business fibre broadband mid this year. So we're really, really delighted about that. And I was really pleased to bring that to you today. I do have a web address if you wish to register your interest. and I'll forward that to Tracy and Lauren so that you have access to it. But I'm hoping this will, provide a huge advantage for us in our locality and be a big support to local businesses. Colonnade House, it really sort of follows on. Colonnade House is one of the first places that we connected up with dark fibre. And that is because we've set out a very clear ambition to support our micro startups and our micro entrepreneurs. And as you know, Colonnade House has been hugely successful as a creative hub. In fact, amazingly successful. The units above what used to be the shop and is now the gallery have run at nothing less than 94% since we opened. And the gallery space has been at 100%, has really improved this important entrance to Worthing, and is actually booked out for the next, 2.5 years, as I understand it, from the team. So, really, really impressive. And what you can see on this slide is what we intend to do with number 5, which we acquired about 18 months ago, and is really a sort of shell of a building, and number 7 on the end there, which also needs a lot of TLC. So using the opportunity to introduce some residential element, we're looking at that to underwrite a creative and digital hub, in the remainder. The planning application went in earlier this week, I'm delighted to say, so we can really look forward to this happening. What's it going to be? Well, it'll be 267 square meters of additional commercial floor space over 4 stories, 5 new studios, 2 upgraded studios, 2 creative workspaces, meeting rooms, exhibition space. And we've done a lot of research to make sure that that fits, what the local market needs, rather than just making that sort of presumption. And in addition to that, as I said, there are around 6 flats in the top floors. We're looking to award a contract to build this out in the summer of this year. So it's another 2021 project. I always talk about major development projects. I'm not going to go through them all because I know you have regular updates from my colleague James Appleton, who does such a sterling job on the planning side and had a record year last year, and I'll come back to that. But I did in particular for Peter Webb, the venerable Mr. Webb's benefit, want to show you images of Decoy Farm. I've actually sent some extra images to Tracy and Lauren because we actually had a drone flight which provided some better images than the ones of that I'm able to show you here. Last year, we really, I suppose, sort of got to that point where joyfully we were able to take pictures like this. For those of you following the Decoy story, and I think, Peter and I would be the first to acknowledge it's become a saga over the years. It's been a case of when is something going to happen? What can we do? And the breakthrough several years ago when we secured 4.8 million from the Coastal Capital LEP via the Local Growth Fund to remediate this site. The challenge was always, as many of you will know, that this huge site, 7.7 hectares, had really been used for many years as a sort of town tip, and going way back, things weren't regulated as hotly as they are now. And the challenge was to clear this up. And so that initial investment had always been the stumbling block. And that 4.8 million has allowed us to unlock this site. And you get images, there's a lot of mud. I will be the first to acknowledge that. There is a lot of mud. And under Q&A, I've got some drone footage, which will give you a sense of the sheer scale of the site. So what do we actually want to do? Well, first remediate, but then, most importantly, beyond mud, look at about sort of 13,500 square meters of employment floor space, delivering new commercial units to meet both existing and future industrial demand. You will know, as I do, that the demand for commercial floor space across Adur and Worthing is huge. And if we're to support and grow the local economy, I think this is a good example of the council doing the right thing, with the land that it owns. for those of you with the technical bent, as it were, what you can see actually going on in these images is that we're taking off the top layer. We're capping, as you would expect us to do. We're trying to take as little off-site as possible. We're treating as much of the excavated material as possible and then leveling it. And then we will overlay some of the obviously the original landfill with a safe, flat environment on which we can develop. So all looks good. The great news for 2021 is that we'll have finished this stage by the end of March. In fact, we have to finish it by the end of March, otherwise I have to give some money back to the LEP, and councillors don't like me doing that at all, and I don't want to do that. So yeah, we've got to finish. Let's crack on. One of the things I was going to mention was that last year saw some major development proposals reach that critical stage of securing planning permission. And with apologies to Councillor Boggess, it's a Worthing-centric presentation this morning. I'll look to rebalance that during 2021, Brian. Okay, but I did want to show you this. So this is the model of Union Place. So the little blocks there labelled are the outline consent for Union Place. Delighted that this got permission. You'll remember that this is the former site of Worthing Police Station. It's a partnership we formed with London and Continental Railways to go in and buy the land, and then we sponsored this planning application. So it's high density, quite unashamedly high density. You're looking at 169 new homes, 670 square metres of commercial floor space, a 90-bed hotel, and the potential for a 3 or 4 screen cinema, possibly as an extension to the Connaught. I think it would sit alongside that very well. So what's the challenge for 2021? Well, it's to turn an outline planning permission into a development on the ground, to actually come forward with the detail and find a development partner who's actually going to build that out. So we're going to look to start marketing this site very soon. We're already soft market testing. The interest in the market is significant, I'm very pleased to say. What we need to do this year is find that developer who will come forward and actually work up the scheme and make it a reality. As you can probably tell, I like this scheme. This is a sort of a large vacant space, in the heart of Worthing. We have several of those. We have a duty to come forward and make this work. I like the streetscapes. I like the fact that the heights vary. Here's the view looking down to Union Place to St Paul's. Here's the view, if you like, on the left there. You're standing outside Waitrose. For too long, that's looked barren. I think you've probably heard me say before that, Waitrose has been annexed. We must bring it back into the town, and this is one way of achieving that. So I like these images, and this one demonstrates that even sort of car parking elements don't have to be dull and boring, and let's inject that sense of design and modern town centre. Brilliant opportunity, of course, to link with the town centre here. So let's look forward to that. We're looking forward to appointing a developer for this scheme. I would love to be able to say we could do that in summer this year, so I will say it, why not? Partnership is key, of course, and that's going to continue to be a really important theme for 2021. Time for Worthing was launched the week before lockdown 1. Fantastic timing, but actually it's gone on to be, a real success, and there's only more to come there. I think what we saw last year was a really successful advertising campaign targeting micro entrepreneurs and those wishing to relocate to Worthing. Some of you will have seen that Time for Worthing sponsored the council's appearance at the Site Match event, which is where we reach out to some really major developers, a number of whom have followed that exercise up with us, and 1 or 2 have come through to express very genuine interest in some of our key sites. Time for Worthing is sponsoring an inward investment strategy, and I think it's terrific to look at an inward investment strategy in partnership to canvass businesses' views about inward investment and where some of those next significant plays are going to come from. So I think that's terrific. And as well as that, putting together a digital investment prospectus as well, playing to that new sector of the economy and making sure that we capitalise on what opportunities are out there. So I'm really heartened by Time for Worthing. And as much as anything, I like the banners as well. I think they're classy and they look good around the town. Town centres is going to be a running theme. When we come out of whichever lockdown we happen to be in, the council has a huge responsibility to make our places look the best they can be and to be ready. It's vitally important that our places offer an environment where people feel safe to trade and visit. And of course, this includes re-establishing our local markets, and Ada in particular has really sort of paved a way with markets and been recognised in awards for the various markets that we run. So more to come in that regard. I'll go on to talk about acquisitions in a little while, but like many others, we're going to have to consider alternative uses for some of our town centre locations. So you will be familiar with the Burton's and Dorothy Perkins stores. You won't be familiar, well, you might be familiar with the bigger guy on the right, shall I say, is Rag and Bone Man. And he is closely linked with a music charity called Audio Active, who do some fantastic work with young people, introducing them to mainly electronic music, but giving them the opportunity to work in studios, to develop their portfolios and go on in a number of instances, to have really interesting career opportunities. So why do I put these two slides up here? Because the council owns Dorothy Perkins. We all know, sadly, what's happened to that store. So we find ourselves with a vacant shop unit, and we're actively working with Audio Active to see if there's an opportunity there for a period to get Audio Active in, to create some sort of real vibrancy by having studio space and even some performance space. Whilst we look at the longer term for these spaces that become available. Really quite excited about that. I think it also plays, to the wider role of town centres, which would be interesting to discuss, and what they're going to be in the future. And the opportunity to provide experiences is something that we've talked about before. Here's something that could be very live and come to Worthing literally within a few months. The council has a duty to look after its places, and that extends to improving those places. I'm really pleased that in the coming weeks, you will start to see the setup on site for Portland Road. And 2021 is the year that we deliver this improved public realm. Not as a one-off, but as part of a programme that we're delivering with West Sussex County Council. On Portland Road, the distinction is, unlike any other public realm programme of this scale, Worthing Borough Council is the project lead and is delivering it direct. And I think sometimes in the past there's been a sense that these things, if they're done at all, are done to us. So I hope you will agree that the town council taking control of the scheme, working really closely with local traders who've been absolutely brilliant, by the way, is the right way to go, rather than accepting a sort of one-size-fits-all approach. And I'm hugely enthused about that. As I say, you will start to see the setup. Inevitably with these schemes, there's a little bit of disruption, but I think it's for a very good cause. And working in partnership with the County Council, the next one to talk about is railway approach. As the HMRC come to complete their development, it's really important that the introduction to the town looks the best it can be. The County Council are advancing their plans. It's a challenging area, but at the moment, I'm sure you will agree, doesn't present the best of Worthing to those people arriving by train and those people who will come to visit the new offices when they're open. So bringing this scheme forward in 2021 is an important priority. And that's just an extract from the latest plan that the County Council are working up with WSP their partners on that scheme. We are heavily involved in that, and Worthing Borough councillors, including the leader of the council, Dan Humphreys, and Kevin Jenkins, are scrutinising every step along the way, which is, you know, very good to see. Events and attractions, when we can go out. This is probably an example of something you can do when you can't go out, but it seemed to go down very well. And you know, when they're not distributing business grants, the place and economy team are retaining that interest and making sure that those who wish to run, you know, some of our sporting and cultural events are ready to go when we can all get out there again. In the meantime, the laser show and the opportunity to dial in using your mobile phone and control the lasers seem to go down very well, and we've had repeated requests to run this again next year, so I sincerely hope that we will. The wheel will be back, which is good news. Very tough to run, you know, a giant wheel in lockdown conditions. I think the operator, you know, made a very good job of it. Is very keen on Worthing and wishes to come back, and I think that's a sort of symbol, if you like, an important one. So we'll welcome them back, you know, in a month or two, which is good. I mentioned acquisitions earlier, and in our and then response document, we talked about, as councils often do, you know, making property acquisitions and actually intervening to try and create the right conditions, mindful of the demand for employment space there is, that I referred to in relation to Decoy Farm. This is the old EDF office car park, which we've acquired. And the reason I wanted to talk about this, so this is Southdown View Way, actually. I think I've put the wrong title on the slide there. But what we're going to develop out there is a 1 hectare, effectively a light industrial estate. It's 3,500 square meters of light industrial space, 110 parking spaces. We're looking at potentially piloting an easy in, easy out tenure time. One of the things that small and medium-sized enterprises find so challenging, as I'm sure you will affirm, is some of the bureaucracy, you know, around, if you like, developing from startup to sort of next stage and then beyond, to do with property. And actually committing yourself to, you know, a long lease can be one of those extremely difficult challenges. So an easy out, easy in, easy out model, that's the right way around, could be a solution, and we've seen it work elsewhere. So we're actively considering developing out this land, which benefits from an existing planning permission. Proposed unit sizes, sort of 1,500 to 3,000 square feet. It will be a grade A spec. We're looking to include EV charging points, mezzanine floors, and we'll really start to sort of pick up the pace on this development this year. And you can see bottom right an illustration. That's an illustration from the approved scheme. You know, so that may change, but it gives you a flavour of these units, and we know that there's huge demand out there. Speaking of demand, another area that the council is exploring, and Andrew Swain and I have been having some really engaging conversations and starting to sort of dip our toe into understanding what operators need here, and indeed, you know, more importantly, what local businesses need. But you'll have seen that a number of places, and bottom left there is the one on the Isle of Wight, have introduced innovation centres. So for that next stage down, if you like, for people who want to try out, you know, but again, you know, need the space to do so and don't want to be crippled by, you know, excessive rent demands, an innovation centre, if you can find the right space, does seem to work, you know, very well. We have them in the sub-region, of course, you know, and they're often associated with the university campuses. If we can build in some, you know, university input as well, this has been a long-standing aspiration for both Adur and Worthing. So We don't have a site yet, but we're actively exploring 1 or 2 options. And Tracy, I'd love to come back and talk about this, perhaps sort of, you know, halfway through the year, possibly as a double act with Andrew. But ever optimistic, Andrew. I can't see you at the moment, but I'm sure you're smiling. And then a little bit of Ada, to finish on, I suppose, you know, you've heard me talk about proposals and propositions. It's really important to record things as they come through. HMRC site in Worthing will complete, you know, very shortly. This is the yacht club, and as a Shoreham resident, you know, this is and taking my 1 permitted piece of exercise per day, I've been really delighted by how many people stop on Ferry Bridge, and even from 2 meters away I can hear them commending the design of this building. And you'll remember it's effectively representative of a land deal that we did with the yacht club, which has facilitated the opportunity for them to build this fantastic new building. The council will demolish their old one and install the very important flood defence, which of course guards this previously unprotected part of the 259, which is the first part to flood. But, you know, how lovely to see things actually come to fruition. And I wish the yacht club, you know, well with what should be a fantastic new location. So I hope that gives you an overview, and very pleased to pick up any questions.